my project was on activism at the LSE, as Lydia said, and how do student activists experience being agents of change at the LSE? Also, in what ways does the LSE enable student-led activism? So to give a brief overview of the project, it was qualitative. It comprised of 6 focus groups, each with around, overall it was 16 participants, which came from a wide variety of collective campaigns and activist groups, all of which were recognized within the SU as campaigning groups, such as Justice for Cleaners, Decolonize Collective, CC, Make LSE Queer Again, Hands Off Campaign, Freedom of Mind, LSE Went Strike. And to go over some of the objectives of this research project, mainly it was to enlarge the body of research on activist students' experiences, which has never been done before on Change Makers, and in general, there's very little research on this topic. And specifically, as Dilly said earlier in the 2030 strategy, the term agents of change, I wanted to see how activist students related to that term specifically, and also the ways in which the LSESU can help support activist students more. So some of the general findings around experiences at the LSE, one of the main things was that the most common motivation for activist students was that they wanted to improve the institution itself, which isn't necessarily surprising, but a lot of them expressed that they wanted to improve it in relation to improving the well-being of students and staff. Sorry, this is blocking my vision. Also activist work helped participants engage more with the academic work. Some it literally provided them with topics of research. And also many participants expressed that the community and social aspect of activism at LSE was very enriching and provided them with social networks that they couldn't have accessed in their academic or in other societies in the SU. So here is a list of the kinds of words I got in response to asking the participants to summarize their experiences into 3 words. The most common words were humbling and community, and also a word that related to frustrating, slow, alienating. So with regards to the term agents of change, all participants didn't relate to this term. Some of them relate to the term with regards to their education and their academic work, which makes sense. It also makes sense given that most participants didn't relate to the term activist either, although it was particularly pronounced amongst female participants as they expressed more self-criticism over identifying with the term activist. But yeah, in general, none of the participants found that the term agents of change described their activist experience. So to do with the main findings of activist experiences with the LSE, I'll go on to the LSESU after. The main issue was for LSE student activists, where they didn't have dialogue with the LSE management or senior members of staff expecting for their demands to immediately be met. One of the things that surprised them was the elements of non-recognition. So for example, the framing of their work as automatically extremist or on the fringe or demanding too much. That was where a lot of the students felt like it was unnecessary for LSE management or senior members of staff to react in the way they did. So for example, one of the quotes from a participant, "I haven't ever felt like the LSE was interested in listening on a constructive level. It was always, we're a little too loud," and then they push back. And also from the other quotes, there is a similar experience of feeling like you're being framed as an extremist automatically by just trying to have a dialogue. So the main suggestion for the LSE is to improve pathways of communication and to having open dialogue. And recognition of activist students' concerns, especially when they're represented by the SU, they're formalized within the SU campaign structure. It does make sense to at least have some form of recognition of their concerns as students. So to go on to findings with the LSESU, so activists see the SU as a formal channel to have dialogue with the LSE management. This is where they think that their issues and their concerns should be represented and communicated to LSE management and senior members of staff. And most participants, whilst they felt like there was good support systems in place, for example, having an SU campaign officer, they definitely should be a better intermediary between activist students and the LSE senior figures / management. They felt like there was high levels of bureaucracy and very little transparency. And there is also a separate aspect which is to do with participants engaged in formal roles, such as sabbatical roles or part-time officer roles. They had quite negative experiences. So here's just a few quotes. I do realize I'm on the 5-minute mark, so I'll have to skip past them. but hopefully you'll be able to read some in brief. Partly this can be explained. I think the auxiliary role that the SU play is helpful, but it can certainly be strengthened. And also these levels of bureaucracy in this bottom quote, it's a lot of legwork for activist students to even get a post on the SU Instagram account, for example. And also a lot of the part-time officers found that their work was exploitative because they weren't paid for it. And it was a lot of work that left them feeling alienated and not supported by the SU itself. To go over some of the suggestions, the main suggestions have more research, specifically on how the SU functions and the experiences of staff and students around campaigning, experiences of sabbatical officers, experiences of specifically female, queer, BAME students in formalized positions in the SU. A lot of these participants had negative experiences, and it felt like this was the first time they were expressing it properly. To pay part-time SU student officers and create paid campaign officer roles that can act as intermediary between student organizations and the SU. Have less bureaucracy for campaigns and more transparency, specifically for SU campaigning groups who should be able to have like a list of people who hold positions and how to contact them. Moreover, give more authority to democratically elected sabbatical officers, for example, allowing them to email students and or make a post on the SU Instagram page. Quite simple suggestions.